Welcome to the show, Mr. Simon Stevens. What's happening, man?
All good, Al. Very busy. Fight week. It's Monday. I want the fights to happen tonight. I think the card is such a damn good card, But like when Monday comes around to fight week, I always think, yeah, I'm excited, but also thinking about the fighter safety. Everyone cutting weight. Everyone taking a trip down to Cape Town. Everyone coming over from Europe. We've got a couple of European guys coming over. So I kind of think, even though I've got trepidation and I'm nervous for fights and I can't wait for Saturday, also just hoping that the week goes well for all the fighters.
Yeah, especially cutting weight in Cape Town with water restrictions and limited baths should be interesting.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
indeed.
always a sticky situation, but I suppose the guys have got to do what they got to do to get those numbers on the scales right, man. And it's I
Yeah.
mean, we wish everyone the best with that, and hope they all have a safe cut in the last couple of days leading up now. Obviously, that card's EFC75 heading to Cape Town, headlined by Zuluboy versus Gary Joshua. We've spoken about this quite a bit now. It's a hell of an interesting fight. We've got the classic stand-up versus grappler scenario, but again, with that being said, there's a whole lot more into it than just stand-up and grappling. There's a lot of nuances in between the two of them. So what do you have to tell us about your predictions there? Not your predictions, but how you'll see the fight going.
Oh man, it's a tough one and it's a good one because both guys do match up well. I mean, a lot of people are like really counting out Gary straight away. And you look at their records. Obviously, Zuluboy is way more experienced than Gary, but Gary's such a dangerous prospect. I mean, he's going into the Hexagon on Saturday night with absolutely nothing to lose. He's been giving his title shots as a result of a couple of absences in the EFC. No one else wanted to fight Zulu. I mean, he's been trying to get a fight for quite a long time. And this is where I'm a bit concerned about where Zulu's head is at, because when I spoke to him at Media Day in Carnival City last month, it was I kind of got a very frustrated vibe from him. He's basically had just one fight a year for the past 3 or 4 years. And that's just not enough. It's not necessarily about earning potential, but it's also about your cage time. And he hasn't been getting it. So it's also a case of him saying, well, if the EFC can't bring me out international opponents to really raise the caliber of my fighting, then I'm going to have to go look for a foreign promotion to fight over there, and they're going to have to help me do that as well. So, he says he's not looking past Gary, but he was just yakking on about how he wants to fight JP Bates and make JP suffer, and JP's a coward, and JP's this, and all that kind of stuff. And he actually didn't want to talk about Gary Joshua. He wanted to talk about fighting BK Massoniani and JP Bates. And it's a dangerous thing to look past a kid like Gary Joshua who's got absolutely nothing to lose. I mean, it's like Gary's Muay Thai is not a joke. We know that. We talk about Nkazimolo Zulu's fantastic kickboxing. His kicks are ridiculous. He's got great knockout power. But he kind of matches up well against Gary in terms of their height and their length differences. I mean, they're very closely matched. And when it goes to the ground, Gary Joshua is one of those guys who's prepared to tap, snap, or nap anyone. You give him a limb. If he's fighting from his back, he's got a great rubber guard. He's got great sneaky submissions. As a Gracie Baja blue belt, how good his jits are. I think it's a brown belt in BJJ.
Yeah.
So, I just, Zuluboy going there and I feel he's taking a couple of things for granted with Gary Joshua. And Gary's just one tough motherfucker who's going to go in there and he's got no fear. So it's a dangerous prospect for Zulu. Yes, on the skills, Alistair, everyone's been saying that Zuluboy is just way more experienced, way more dangerous guy. Fair enough. But still, going into the Hexagon against a guy like Gary Joshua who's got nothing to lose is a very, very dangerous situation for Zuluboy.
Yeah, 100%. And like I say, and you mentioned in there that Gary Joshua is a brown belt. He's an SBG brown belt that was awarded to him by Matt Thornton, who was the founder of SBG. So it's a legitimate lineage, and it's a guy who's very well versed in the ground, and to get a brown belt at his age is says a lot. It means the guy's been putting in the hours and he's really been putting in the work and dedicated to that craft. That being said, there's also obviously a lot more to him than just what he's able to do on the ground, and it will be a key detail if it gets to the deck what the differences are, and I think Gary Joshua in his mind will feel very confident that he can get that to the ground and find a submission, and I think Zulu will probably be quite confident that he won't allow that to happen. The biggest question for me there again is we know Gary Joshua, where he trains. We can see him online. He's training at Camp Fight in Cape Town. The guys have got good Muay Thai. If you see what they've done with champion Dolce and how they've changed his stand-up or matured his stand-up, it's a very, very legitimate gym, and their Muay Thai is exceptionally good, you know, and they're dedicated to the fighters. It doesn't seem like they have a massive crop of fighters, but the guys that they have are getting a lot of good time, and they're improving, and they're moving on in leaps and bounds. It does seem like Zuluboy has been spending a bit of time at UMF, obviously with the Mark Penner. You know, I would guess that they would try and establish a better bit of wrestling, because I think that in itself would be quite a key detail. The wrestling will be a mass good detail, both defensively and offensively. You know, if Zuluboy can keep a sprawl and brawl kind of thing, I think he'll get it done. If Gary Joshua can get that fight to the deck, I think he'll pose a lot of threats for Zuluboy. We don't know what sort of jiu-jitsu Zuluboy is getting in at the moment. It's very hard to see.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And it's in this case where Zuluboy talked about how his wrestling's improved radically this past couple of years. I mean, one of the things he got from the fighter over in the UFC in Vegas so much was the training with Henry Cejudo. And we know Henry Cejudo is an Olympic gold medalist wrestler, current UFC champion. And when Zuluboy came back and he had that car accident when he was supposed to be facing JP Bates, he says, you know, I was raised to take on JP because I wanted to take on a wrestler. I wanted to show the world that I'm not just a great kickboxer, that I'm actually a fantastic wrestler. I've got good submission grappling there, I've got good submission defense, and I've got great top control. And he hasn't had the opportunity to show people his level of wrestling that he says has come on leaps and bounds. You look at his record, his last 3 wins: Magno Alves, first round knockout; Sylvester Chipfumbu, 4th round knockout; Craig Nino, 1st round knockout. I mean, the last time he submitted someone was Cedric Doyle at EFC22. You know, so the problem is, it's like, I don't think you should be, and perhaps he isn't, it'd be unfair to level this accusation at him, that it's not a good idea to go into a fight hoping that you're going to get the opportunity to put the spotlight on one very specific skill set, particularly when you've got a guy against Gary Joshua who, like you said, is superb off his back and just eats wrestlers every day off his back. I mean, he would love someone who thinks they can go in and establish a dominant top control over him. He'll be looking forward to that rather than wanting to stay on the feet against Zuluboy. So it's a dangerous prospect for him. At the end of the day, I mean, if anyone comes to shove and ask me for a prediction, I'll be happy to go with the 1st round knockout for Zuluboy. But it wouldn't surprise me if it goes to a 2nd round decision to Gary Joshua. That's how highly I rate this kid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Gary Joshua definitely has the ability. I mean, one of the key things that I was thinking about was when we saw Zuluboy with Magno Alves, and Magno Alves and his team obviously picked up that perhaps there was an opportunity at a leg lock, you know, maybe get an ankle lock somewhere there, a knee bar, because that's obviously quite high level jiu-jitsu, and they would have said, you know, well, let's grab a leg and let's see how he reacts, let's see how he defends. We don't know, you know, how much time is he spending doing those sort of things. And I think it was quite clear then that he definitely had a little bit of knowledge. I think both guys made a lot of mistakes in those transitions, and I don't think Gary Joshua will make those same mistakes. So, you know, if he grabs a leg, which he's more than capable of, like he did against Martin de Beer, I think that's all she wrote, man. I definitely don't think Zuluboy will have the know-how under pressure to really deal with that situation. I don't think he'll. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, I don't mean to be disrespectful to his talent set, but it's just time on the mat. You know, I don't think that he's spending time where guys are locking up his legs and really having a go at it, and he's figuring it out. You know, I think that would be a good detail as well. It'd be interesting to see. But again, like we say, you know, Gary Joshua at the end of the day has got to close that distance. He's got to get into that range where he can get his hands on Zuluboy, and that's probably the most impossible task in the flyweight division, man.
Yeah, no, without shadow of doubt, you're right, completely. But in that leg lock situation, it'd be interesting to see if it goes there, because, like you said, a guy like Gary Joshua, he knows exactly what side you're going to roll to. And I think he'll always be, in terms of the submission on the floor, he'll always be one step ahead of someone like Nkazuma Zulu, perhaps, if he rolls in the wrong direction and his ankle's gone. Also, he's a very different build as Gary Joshua to Magno Alves. Yeah. And even though Zuluboy did well to get out of it, you said they both make mistakes. You're completely correct. Gary Joshua isn't going to make that very same mistake, and he's quite a lanky guy. So it's difficult for Zuluboy to actually kick away from that leg lock. Yeah, it's a dangerous place to be here, man. You know, I know how much leg locking has improved, and it's our popularity in the BJJ community here in South Africa. That's only a great thing. And when you start taking that into the MMA cage, you know, everyone needs to start stepping up when it comes to leg locking. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It'd be a cracking fight either way, man. But they've both got something for each other on the feet, and it's a lot more interesting if it goes to the ground. And Cape Town's a perfect place to kind of like spotlight the ground game in MMA in South Africa at the moment, because it's such a high level. You look at it 2 years ago, you look at some of the MMA events that EFC were putting on here in South Africa, and now you look at the quality of jiu-jitsu in general, the MMA community in South Africa. It's kind of leaps and bounds, man. It's going to be a cracking title fight.
100%. And I think it's going to be one set for the ages. I see it either ending very quickly or going all the way. So, get in there and hold on to your seat and let's see what happens. It's one of those, like, I think everyone asks you what's going to happen. You're like, well, by the numbers and on paper, Zuluboy should get it done. But
sure,
there's that little inkling of doubt, and I think even Zuluboy should be thinking about that. If he's looking past Gary Joshua, good luck to him, man.
No, indeed.
And then we've obviously got the co-main event, which is a very similar sort of, not in the same breath, but a similar sort of scenario where you've got this almost striker versus grappler in terms of Lutando Biko being billed as a judo specialist and Carl Eleanor with a long lineage of boxing and a good boxing pedigree. But again, it's a fight where there's so much more involved, I think Lutando Biko is almost bordering on a purple belt now under Chris Bright, which is also as legit a lineage as it gets in the country. He's been on the local BJJ scene, kicking ass and taking names. I think he's racked up quite a few gold medals this year, ADCC and a few other no-gi comps. He's been very competitive and been doing really well. And across from him is going to be, I think, a different sort of challenge in Carl Eleanor. Quite interesting there. We saw Lutando Biko deal with Steven Gonzalez before, and I think that'll be also a key detail in this fight on how he deals with the range and stuff like that. And I know you had quite a bit. You spoke to Chris Bright on how he deals with the range, and you can tell us about that. But very, very interesting fight. It's a longer guy against a shorter guy, very different makeups, and a super, super interesting fight, this man. And it's another super tough fight.
Yeah, it's like you said, those two builds, that like you got Lutando Shorty Biko and you've got Callanan, who was a lot rangy, a lot massive high and reach advantage he's got. But yeah, you look at the Steven Gonzalez Lutando Biko fight to see how a guy like Shorty was able to close the distance so quick. I mean, he can come in and out. He's got some nasty shots to the body, but he's able to close the distance so quick and then exits the situation with a decent angle that he never takes to counter. That being said, Cal Eleanor is a very different striker to Steve Gonzalez, and Cal's boxing is absolutely incredible. So I think he'd be able to use his jab a lot more effectively than perhaps Steven Gonzalez wasn't. The thing for Lutando Biko, he's never going to hope to outstrike someone like Kellen. He just wants to use his strikes to set up the takedown and then get into top control. My concern with that is he does that over 5 rounds. He can't just be grinding upon someone who's got such good jits ability like Cal Eleanor. And the thing for me for this fight, if you look at Cal's record, 7-0. Should we say 7-0 or should we say 7-1?
Yeah, we say 7-0.
Let's say 7-0. First round submission, his last fight against Faiz Jacobs was a standing guillotine. Before that, Espen Kolfi, I mean, beautiful rear naked first round submission. I mean, he's hardly ever goes past the first round. He's got every single submission win under the sun. I mean, this guy's just a beast. And I just don't think that Lutando Biko, obviously his strength is he's got beautiful judo. Once he goes in, he's able to get beautiful hip throws, great tosses. Give him a single ankle, he'll take you down. You have really beautiful takedown defense against a guy like Shorty. But I just don't think he's going to be able to have the same kind of game plan he had against Steven Gonzalez against Callahan, or if he's going to be establishing dominant top control against a guy similar almost to the main event in some ways, where it's like both these guys are so dangerous off their back, and Callahan was a very dangerous guy. It'd be interesting to see how it works out on the canvas in terms of that reachability and the submission defense of Lutando Biko. But he's such a tough dude, and both these guys are incredibly tough guys. You put them in any kind of situation in the hexagon, they'll guts it out. And it's such a shame that there has to be one winner of this fight. We've mentioned it before. I think it was the Mazzani-Van Staden fight where I knew both these guys so well, and I don't want a single loss. I don't want a knockout. I want to see a gentleman tap at the end of a really cracking fight. And I hope that's what happens here, because they both come from very tough times in their lives. They both had very difficult upbringings, and they're both family guys, and they're both very respectful to each other. I mean, I know that Lutando Biko reached out to Callum, and Callum said after the fight, let's go for a braai. And there's no smack talk. I know it's something that you, as a Jits guy, particularly like about this fight, is that both guys are gentlemen. Both guys are almost very fraternal and brotherly towards each other. It's just a shame that one of these guys has to lose. But the winner, boy, what a great thing to get an interim title fight and then a possibly unification fight against JP Pace when he returns.
Yeah, 100%. The stakes are as high as they can be, you know. And like you said, I think the EFC did such a great job in the countdown to kind of display this zero animosity kind of fight, you know, which is it's a breath of fresh air for MMA fans. I think at the moment, you know, there's this constant animosity and drama and saga, and look, that the drama and saga gets the views, but I mean, you know, to get this zero animosity fight between two guys that are professionals, they know, look, they're just going to go out there and let the best man win, let the best set of skills win, and let that do the talking, which is great to see, man. And I think there's a couple of, you mentioned Stephen Gonzalez, and I think we have to mention for Cal's side, you know, the fight against Gareth Bursky is also quite a key detail. Gareth Bursky, I think, is a very different fighter, but you could say a similar build. And if you speak to the guys at CIT about Gareth Bursky, man, they'll tell you that dude is like, guys are like, they're reluctant to roll with that guy because he just never stops and he's strong as an ox, you know what I mean? So it's something Cal's definitely dealt with before, and the guy, I don't even try to say his name, Espen, the guy before, was also built the same way, you know, like short brick, shit house, strong as an ox, keeps coming forward, you know. So both guys have definitely had quite a bit of experience with that sort of build. I think Lutando Biko has been dealing with that his whole life, you know, dealing with longer, taller guys. So it's nothing new to him, you know. And I think it's again, I think on the deck will be very interesting intricacies. And what I'm interested to see is if Lutando Biko gets tagged early by the power of Cal Eleanor, how he reacts, because I don't think he's ever really dealt with that kind of power. And you know, Cal definitely carries a lot of power. The way his body mechanics work, he's rangy, he's long, you know. When he gets his hips under his right hand, it's, oh man, that dude will knock an elephant off its feet. So that'll be the interesting key details for us to see and see who wins those exchanges, you know, being tagged, getting to the ground. I feel like Cal will definitely be taken down at some stage. How he reacts, can Lutando Biko keep him there? I know he's very crafty off his back and getting back onto his feet. He sets up that guillotine from everywhere. So yeah, super interesting fight again.
Yeah, no, you're right, he's got a lot of the guillotine wins on his record, and you know, apart from that one loss, which wasn't a loss to Gareth, you know, he was undefeated coming over here to South Africa before he got robbed. But interestingly, Cal's every single knockout on his record with Callum Eleanor has been first round. I mean, he's like his submissions, like you said, he's got his guillotines come from every single angle, but his knockouts are always first round TKOs. So he's just one dangerous dude. But then you got a guy like Shorty, who's just the toughest, sweetest, most awesome guy, who's just fast and wiry, and you want to put him in a brawl, he'll come back and give you answers, and he's got great counters to the body, and he's so fast, it's difficult to get hold of, and all of a sudden, you know, you're on the wrong side of him, and you're like a Haga Nagari hip throw, and you're on the floor, and he's a big guy. I mean, is that build? He's such strong. He's able to establish great top control, and it's just a nasty place for anyone to be, where he's shoulder barging you and keeping you on the canvas, and you can't move, you can't frame up. It's a very, very difficult prospect for anyone. The fight is, they're great guys, and they're so supremely matched. You've got to give respect to Graham Cartmel, but wow, what a co-main event it is. I mean, you've got a great title fight, but what an even better co-main event.
Yeah, 100%, and it's going to be I think it's going to be one of those fights that's going to have the local fans quite torn. As I know, Carl's picked up quite a bit of support, and I don't think you'll find anybody in that room that has any hatred towards Lutando Biko. So I think it's going to be a tough one for the fans to decide there as well, man.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that's the main and co-main events are cracking, and it's also going to be a good situation for both those weight classes to get some clarity and start moving on, which is awesome, because they've been sitting stagnant for quite some time, and it's definitely going to provide some clarity on what's going to happen next. And then down the card there's some cool fights. Armand Skeepers versus Joe Cummings. It's nice to see Joe Cummings back in the fold. I wasn't too sure if he was ever really coming back. I think Armand obviously went through the ridiculous troubles of making weight, and I replaced the person, which is obviously super ironic. But I think props to Armand where it's due. He obviously said to Graham, "I'll take a fight at middleweight," which is madness. Did it, looked pretty good against a pretty dangerous opponent, and wrapped that up quite nicely. So it looks like he's been rewarded, man. So props to all of them involved with that. And Joe Cummings is no small task.
Yeah, what kind of reward is it to be facing Joe Cummings? So here you go. You failed to make weight dismally. We'll give you another fight at a higher weight class so you can at least make the weight. And congratulations! Here's your reward. Here's your prize. Joe Silky Cummings coming back to the UFC after a year and a half, made Sean DeLange look ordinary with first or second round submission a year and a half ago at the same venue. A knockout artist with a fantastic kickboxing. I can't see Skeepers being able to lay a single hand on him. His only chances when he goes to the canvas, because we know that Skeepers no-gi jits is absolutely superb. But dude, Joe Cummings is no slouch on the ground. I mean, sure. He's a beast on the mat. He's just, because we call him Silk Cummings, we expect his kickboxing style to be so smooth and silky, but we don't give him enough credit where it's due on the canvas. So I'll ask you, Alistair, where does Skeepers win this fight?
Yeah, it'll have to be something very similar to Petey Coxon. Like when I saw the matchup with him and Petey Coxon, I was like, okay, look, there is a chance, but somehow he drags that to the ground and gets an arm, you know what I mean, where he's going to rely a lot more on technique, where there's not going to be too much raw power that's going to be against him,
Yeah.
So, even if Armand Skeepers is as good as his technique is, eventually, I mean, if he had to get into a mount position, I just don't think, everyone says that he's built he should be fighting at featherweight,
Yeah.
So dealing with guys that are cutting to make sort of welterweight, and he's just living his life to make welterweight.
Yeah.
Obviously technique counts for a lot of things, but that size is eventually going to catch up with you, especially in the ground, because you're going to get tired having to move around with that extra weight, So yeah, it's a very tough one for Skeepers. If he can somehow get a choke somewhere along the line, that's how he would win it, or maybe an arm, maybe something dirty like a wrist lock, who knows.
Wrist lock, dirty, Alistair. But no, you better than that.
Traditionalist.
Yeah, but props to him for taking the fight without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it goes. I don't know how many times you've had to explain this working in MMA media, but I've had to explain it for so many years. It's when you're trying to critique fights and fighters and styles and matchups and records and wins and losses and that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, my respect for every single person who goes through that fence and makes that walk to the hexagon, I've got the most ultimate respect for. And sometimes I think you have to remind viewers and everyone around that it's like when I say that I can't see any way in which Armand Skeepers wins this fight, I mean it legitimately, but the balls to do that walk in the first place, my friend, you're already a winner in my eyes, and that counts for every single fighter on the prelims as well.
Sorry, man. Yeah. It's going to definitely be a tough one for Armand Skeepers, but respect to him, man. And then the next fight is one that gets me excited. Also, again, I'm not too mad about the matchup, but Toby Madsen.
Torbjörn.
Sorry if I'm mashing his name up, but that dude, we saw him, I think it was the beginning of the year in Cape Town. He just looked like a beast, man. Came out here, wrecked Bruno Makulu and booked his flight home, so super exciting prospect, as a middleweight. I think he's a legitimate contender. If he can rack up a good win here, maybe one or two more, we're definitely going to start throwing his name in the conversation. He just looks like a supreme dude. I think the story was something he was studying at UCT or something like that, and they offered him a fight. He was training out of PFA, and it was kind of like, sure, man, jump in. Sorry, bro, just hang on there a second. My daughter's...
No. Hear what?
No, my daughter was crying.
Oh, sorry, buddy.
No, it's all
Sorry.
good. My wife will sort it out. Yeah, so I think Madsen is a great prospect. He's definitely going to be a future contender if sticking around in the EFC is what he wants to do. I follow him online. I see the dude putting in hours and hours on the mats. You know, his jits looks really, really legitimate. So yeah, man, super exciting prospect, and definitely one for guys to keep an eye on. Just keep your eye on Mr. Madsen there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised at what he brings to the table.
Yeah, he's such a well-rounded skill set, is Madsen. I mean, he's just, you know him in terms of his, you see him grinding on the mats every day. But he's got my attention a few years ago. It was 2 years ago. He got a couple of first round, third round knockouts. I mean, I loved his boxing style. I mean, he's got a fantastic. He's a big middleweight as well. Yeah. I mean, he's a big lad, but he's a beast on the feet. I mean, if you look at it, he's undefeated. Apparently, his undefeated record's a big. His undefeated record's a big thing for him. But he's got wins in every single area of the cage. I mean, he's a difficult prospect for anyone. But like you said, he was like studying in Cape Town, training at PFA with Mike Munimi, and they said, yeah, a couple of weeks, do you fancy taking on Bruno Makulu? We know how difficult it is to put Bruno away. And goes and makes Bruno look ordinary and knocks him out in the second round. I mean, jeez, the guy's an absolute beast, and you're completely correct in pointing him out to the viewers on this particular podcast because, yeah, definitely one for the future.
Yeah, man, and I think definitely remember his name because you might just be seeing him fight for the title sometime soon. And then we've got Faiz Jacobs, fan favorite there. TC Kusu, I must be honest, I'm not a massive fan of that matchup, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. Both stand-up guys. I think that's what we'll expect to see from them both.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have seen Faiz Jacobs fight a more high-profile opponent, with all due respect to Mr. Kusu. Just to test where he is exactly and give a bit of clarity on his stand in the bantamweight division. But yeah, man, fun fight. He brings the fans. He's a hometown favorite, so be cool.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, you'd be cynical and say that it's almost like TCQ has been handpicked to let Faiz Jacobs put on a show to kick off the main card in front of his hometown. I mean, that being said, I mean, Faiz is coming off a great victory against Tumusang Madiba here in Johannesburg. So, the kid's on a roll. It'd be interesting to see, like you said, where TC Kusu is at. I think his record is 2-3. He's got 2 wins and 3 losses at the moment. So he needs to come back hard if he's going to have any relevancy in the division. But what a great opportunity to do that. Kicking off the main card in Cape Town against a Cape Town favourite. I mean, he's in he's a real tough, deep waters for him to go and reprove himself to the EFC and if he deserves to be on the main card ever again in the EFC. He's got a tough fight against ahead of him. So yeah, it could be a case where EFC gets, all right, lads, here you go. First fight the main card, give some fireworks, get a fight of the night bonus, get a performance bonus, put on a fucking great show for the fans, and let's see how the card kicks off. It could be one of those simple cases where they've been given incentives to start the curtain raiser and get it off to a cracking start. So who knows? Like you said, you look at it on paper, it's not an exciting fight. However, Faiz Jacobs in his hometown, TC Kusu, lot of things to prove to himself and the organisation. So a fair bit at stake even for this fight, and it should be a fireworks on the feet regardless.
Yeah, 100%. I think you'll definitely be able to see a stand-up brawl there. And then through the prelims, my definite pick of the prelims was Saxon Delafield versus Regis Muyamba, who could have quite easily been on the main card as well. Good fight to look out for. We've got Nico Yamji, Juan Bezerno, 2 Cape Town guys going at it. Good heavyweights. Nico Yamji's a bit of a difficult style. He likes to sit on the counter, which can make a lot of his fights go all the way. And the times can be quite stale, but I think Juan Bezerno will really press that action and really try to get a finish there. I think that's the way he's made. Good fights in the prelim cards. We've got Chris Dove there as well, the Navy diver. Cool story, cool guy.
Yes.
Looks like
a very cool guy.
Another dude out of the PFA camp. So yeah, man, a lot of exciting fights to kick the night off, and a good reason to get there nice and early.
Yeah, the prelim card's actually stacked, and like you said, we talk about Delafield-Muyambo fight, it really should be on a main card any other time. It gives you an idea of how deep the divisions are in the EFC at the moment. I mean, even like the third prelim, it's Willem Smith against Nkulikoni Hlongwa. I mean, that's a light heavyweight or heavyweight fight, and that's an absolutely cracking fight. I mean, it's such a deep, like Chad Hepburn coming back. There's like some great fighters coming up. But yeah, the prelims is really, really cracking. It's one of the best prelim bouts cards I think we've seen this year.
100%, man. And so if there's any fans, hopefully we've convinced them to get down to Grand West Casino and get a ticket and enjoy the show, man, because I think it's going to be a good one. And like we've said many times before, Cape Town, Grand West especially, is one of the best places to watch MMA in the country. The fans are really well educated. They get behind the boys, and it's an awesome crowd, great atmosphere, and a great night of fight. So if you're an MMA fan or you're not even, pull in and enjoy it.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be a special one, Al. I say it often. I'll say it for this one. I got a weird feeling. I think that we're due a couple of crazy submissions. I think we're due a couple of crazy first round knockouts. And like you said, every event that's held at Grand West in Goodwood in Cape Town is always a really special one. There's something that the crowds bring. It's a different vibe. I don't know if it's the arena. I don't know if it's the influence, knowing of appreciation of the full MMA skill set that all these athletes bring. But every Cape Town event is lit. And with a card like this, it's certainly going to exceed expectations if you get down there for the early fights.
Absolutely, man. Cape Town definitely has to be my favorite place to watch MMA in the country, man. The shows are always remarkable. They're always memorable. The fighters are always galvanized, and it just seems like there's just non-stop action from start to end, and that's my personal experience in Cape Town. I've been to a few now. Yeah, man, I love going to Cape Town. I love being at the EFC shows in Cape Town. For whatever reason, they're always extended. Yeah. So I encourage anybody that's on the fence, get your ticket and go there. Thank you very much for your time, sir. Have a good one, and we'll see you in Cape Town.
See you, Cape Town, Al. Awesome, buddy. Thanks for the chat, man. I really appreciate it. Always fun.
Thanks for your time, Simon. We'll chat to you soon, man. Ciao.
Cheers, brother. Take care.
Ciao.